Hello again, everybody. Again, with this is the tutorial for if you have no lights. You have a problem where you have no lights. This could be for, like we said, Continental, Grand Marquis, Crown Victoria, Ford, make and model. Now, as I specified before, I said I was going to summarize and go a little more into detail about the lighting control module is Ford module for the lighting systems. Chevy has a body control module. They have the lighting control module. Now, the problem was the lights were going on and off. First of all, let's take into consideration, are the lights going on in the first place? Let's say the lights don't go on at all. In order to understand this, and this is very, very, very complicated, I must say, we have to understand what's going on. It's not easy. So, as you see, I drew lines over here. The first thing that you always start with a module, you have to have B plus and you have to have a ground. Now, with these type of modules, you might have more than one B plus. Actually, you have sometimes 4 of them. You have to make sure that you get the B plus before anything. One B plus might be connecting or supplying voltage to one part of the module, while another one might be giving voltage to another part. So if we come over here, we follow over here the orange line over here, follow the orange line, B plus, and they put over here 12 volts at pin 6. You must have this. Now when you come over here to the other one, you have another one over here. You have this one, follow the dark blue one. The dark blue one over here, ignition, start, or run. So you're going to get 12 volts from this also. This looks like it's pin 9. I drew over it. So pin 9 and pin 6 have to have 12 volts to begin with. Otherwise, forget about it. So once we accomplish those two, and first of all, how am I going to get to this module? Well, it obviously tells us behind left side of dash, but also there are connectors that go through it. You can always take out the connector and you can measure the voltage at the connector. Make sure you have 12 volts over here. Now, there is something called inputs and outputs, just like we talked about. So in order to understand, we have to have a switch. That's a switch that you activate if you want the park lamps or you want the headlamps. That's in any car. So with that in mind, let's keep this in mind because this gets very complicated. First of all, you have to have the input. If you look at this, park lamp input, headlamp input. These are like the commands, because I received a message saying, can I go over the commands of PCMs and ECMs? You can think of these as the control lines or the commands to tell this, hey, you know what? The driver or the passenger wants the headlights to go on or the parking lamps to go on. He's giving this a command. Therefore, if there's an input, guess what? Should be an output. Here's the output. These two inputs, 12 volts each. Output at pin 10, which is the light blue wire, the gray one over here, this one. Inputs, output over here. Before we get to that, where does it come from? Well, now we follow. Guess what we follow? There's 2 things to consider. There's a multifunction switch, which might be the problem. Let's say that it could be the problem. The lights are not coming on. Maybe it's the switches. Can it be the bulbs? How can so many bulbs be out? In the front, in the rear? Impossible. So therefore, we come to the conclusion maybe it's a switch, maybe it's a fuse. Fine. We go over here. We start from this fuse over here, fuse 27, which is rated at 20 amps, right? So with all the bulbs on, you're taking about 20 amps. You come over here, you come to a splice again. That means the current divides, as you see. We come over here. Guess what? another B plus. This needs at pin, I believe this is 16. So there's another B plus coming in here. Two B pluses. See, V battery 3, V battery 2, and also there's a V battery 1, like I just explained to you. So you have to make sure you have the B pluses. One a B plus here, and the other one's a B plus over here. And the other one that I showed you, a B plus over here. That's the first case. That's where this line, this path, goes into the B plus. The other path, follow this, follow this. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting to main light switch. So now we're thinking maybe it's the light switch. Maybe it's the switch is the problem. Right? Well, this is manually the switch that I'm activating as a driver or a passenger when I'm active when I want the park lights on or the headlamps on. Therefore, if you look at this, this is the switch that is pivoted or makes contact. When I move this, so I want the park lights on, park light goes from off to on. This one, you see this dot? That means these both work together. They move simultaneously. When this one goes one position down, this one goes one position down. So this goes from off to park. This goes from off to park. That's great. This one is connected. See this? It's connected. But when this is in park, there's no connection here. We don't need it. Let's say we need the headlamps on. The headlamps, if you can see it right here, headlamps is this one over here. That means we have to move down 2 positions. And since these are connected together, this will move 2 positions, this will move 2 positions. So let's go. 1 position, 2 positions. Fine. So now this one is here. Fine. So the parking lamps can still go on. This one goes 2 positions, 1, 2. Now the headlamp also goes on. So the parking lamps in this position goes on, and the headlamps go on simultaneously. You can have either the parking up here, or you can have both. One here, one here. And this is just the rheostat or the pot to control the intensity of the lights. We're not worried about that because right now we have no lights. So follow the path, let's say, for the parking. We're going to follow, remember we said we're connected to this. So from this, from here, we come to this point over here. Through the switch, through here, follow this one, parking lamp input. And I believe that's maybe pin 13 I drew over it. How much should we expect? Well, 12 volts. How do I know? This is a switch coming right from the fuse. So we didn't lose any voltage drop. I should get 12 volts. What about the headlamps? Come over here. Headlamps are here. Follow this. Here, here, here. Headlamp input. Pin 10. Of this C2027. There's many connectors. So this is a connector, let's say. This is another connector. This is another connector. Make sure to go to the right connector. But we're going to pin 10. We're dealing with these two. Either we want the parking lamps on. We're giving this a command. Put on the parking lamps. I want the parking lamps on. Or we're giving this a command. I want the headlamps and I want the parking lamps on. So I should get how much? 12 volts. Why 12 volts? Look, I didn't lose anything. If I don't lose anything through a switch or through a wire, I get 12 volts. I don't lose any voltage. 12 volts or 12 volts, as I put over here. Fine. So now we know the input. Still the problem arises, no lights come on. No parking, no headlamps come on, or they flicker. Again, if they flicker, I go to the B plus and I want to see if the B plus is flickering. Every B plus I check. I'm not sure which is connected to which module inside. These might be a bunch of modules inside. Remember, a bunch of printed circuit boards inside. Doesn't matter to me. I will go and I go to every B plus on the connector, not to this, and measure 12 volts. If it goes 12, 0, 12 something, it's flickering, that's why the lights are going on and off. Must be something wrong with the B plus line, not with the LCM itself. Keep that in mind. Now, we said if there's an input, we gave it a command. Input. We gave it a command to put on the parking lights, to put on the headlamps. Where's the output? Where we spoke about? We're coming out, pin 10, the gray one. the light blue, low beam output. We go out here, go up here, come in here. Now, where do we go into? A multifunction switch. This multifunction switch, and this is a little complicated. This is also when you high beam someone, to flash someone. It's the high beam and it's for low beam. Right now, we're in low beam. We have the parking and the headlamps in low beam. So therefore, we're going to follow the gray wire in here. This is connected to this. So we're going over here, coming out the red, blue, or terminal 3. Here, we have a bunch of fuses. We have 2 paths to take. One filament in this bulb, one filament in this bulb. The light blue will give us the lights, the low beam to light, the headlamps. Now, as you see over here, we should get 12 volts. We didn't lose anything. This might be switches in here or transistors. So my guess is if I have 12 volts coming in, I should have approximately maybe 12 volts coming out to light these filaments, around that. So that's fine. That's in low beam. What about high beam? If high beam, I flip the switch. This switch over here with the arrow will be flipped this way. So contact is from here to here. Current flows here, follows dark blue, and will light the other filament. The other filament will be for the high beam. These 2 are low beam. These 2 are high beam. Okay? So, if there's something wrong with the low beam, if there's something wrong with the high beam, none of this is coming. I'm not getting the high beam or the low beam. It could be the multifunction switch. However, the output of that is controlled by this. It can also be this, the LCM. We can't jump to conclusions because these modules are not cheap. You have to program them. Sometimes the first one doesn't work out. You have to get another one and program it. We can't jump to conclusions. If, let's say, one bulb is out, let's say this bulb is out, then I have to go and trace and see if the fuse is the problem, or maybe this wire is the problem. Maybe this dark green and orange stripe wire is open somewhere, and I'm not getting 12 volts. I might be getting 0 volts or whatever. Maybe it's the fuse, maybe it's this. But the fact that nothing comes on tells us it could be this switch, could be this, but I wouldn't rely on that. Maybe this or one of this. How do I know if it's this or not this? You know what I do? I'm going to find a point of attack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure all the B pluses again, make sure they're good. I'm going to take the connector out, disconnect it from all this module. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump. I'm going to jump the input. I'm going to take the parking. You see over here? It goes over here. It goes over here. This is the output, right? And we said this is the input. I'm going to get a wire from, if this is 13, jump it from 13 right here to 10. A jump a wire from 10 to 13 and see if everything comes on. I'm going to take a jump a wire from 10, which is the headlamp, 10, to the other 10, 10 to 10, right? Input to output. I'm excluding this module. I'm going to jump 10 to 10 and see if everything comes on. If everything comes on when I jump these 2 wires, either parking or headlamp, the problem probably is in here. This is why you need a schematic. This is why I always stress you cannot just go relays and start testing fuses without the schematic. Would you know where the input is? Would you know where the output is? I wouldn't know. So the safest bet to me is if I jump 10 to 10, see if the lights come on. If the lights don't come on, that means there's a problem maybe in the switch. Then I work my way backwards and say 12 volts here, 12 volts here. Not so easy to take the switch out. But my main point is I want to either include this in my troubleshooting as a possible defective component or exclude it. If I exclude it, I'm going to jump these. If the lights come on, that means there's a problem here. You don't want to spend money on a module and then program it and have problems. Just because the lights are turned on from this doesn't mean this is the culprit. This is the guilty one. Remember, take the connectors out, jump them, see if they come on. This is what you have to know how to understand analyzing of the schematic. Because if you just change this and not jump these, you might be changing a defective part for nothing, a costly part. That's how you troubleshoot. This is complicated. Pause it and do whatever you need to do. It is a tough, very tough circuit to understand, actually. But anyway, I hope you understand it. Like I said, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.